Dream 100 strategy is this idea of you go and list who your target customers are, right? So the idea is you list all of them, and this is a marketing strategy. This is it. You don't need more than this, right? We didn't invent the strategy, by the way, but the actual strategy is you find the companies that are game-changing customers. So you identify who are the game-changing customers that I want to go after, like the ones that if they were my customer, it would transform my business. It actually comes from a publishing and advertising sales guy, and he was selling advertising, and he had all of these little tiny clients, and he was sick and tired of it. So he was like, fine, if I were to sell to a big client, like 100 big clients, who would be the big clients I would go after? And then he just started going after the top clients, and they like all bought from it. And you start at the top 10, and once you're done with the top 10, you go to the next 10 and the next 10, and you work your way all the way down the 100. You probably won't get to the bottom of the 100. And you reach out to them on LinkedIn, you send them champagne, you send them a shoe in a now that I've got my foot in the door, right?
Now that I've
Like
got my foot.
like you just go after these people, and you get in front of them, and you start to understand their problems and how you can solve their problems. And the more you can go into that conversation by talking about the problem you solve, the better the conversation will be. So your idea with that is you want to get in front of these people. And then when you're in front of them, you want to start the conversation by getting to know each other. Like you should always do that. Cialdini influence, always build bridges, right? And then you get into our lovely framework, the PASTO framework, where you talk about the problem you solve, you accentuate the problem, in the sense of, if you don't get this solved, this is what your life is going to be like. Offer your solution, talk about the transformation, and then make an offer.
And with the top 100, because it's mostly people you don't know, you want to really get this conversation straight. And you can use things like a survey that lets you get in front of them in your first sales conversation. It's not necessarily a sales conversation.
This process of interviewing and understanding your customers. And if you start off on the top 100, you start with the interviews, what you'll find is by the time you get to number 10, then you can say, this is the problem that I understand. Is this the kind of problem that you guys have? And where are we? And pretty soon you get to the point where people are like, oh, wow, we really need that because you've really been listening and you really have a defined avatar. And that's the key to the Dream 100 strategy, is just get in contact with those first 10 people. You don't have to sell them every time. You can ask them questions. You connect with them on LinkedIn. You connect with them on Facebook, Twitter, I don't know, wherever they are, right? You send them postal mail. You send them something in FedEx. You interview them, right? You can send them, like we said, the shoe, and with a note, now that I have my foot in the door, right? You can send them champagne. So if you look at the rules of influence, if you give somebody something, they will feel obligated to repay that gift. So one thing that can work really well for those top 10 is that you send them something that is valuable to them. And that's why it's only the top 10, right? Because you can't do this for 1,000 people.
No.
You can't go to 1,000 people and say, oh, I'm going to identify a gift for each one of these 1,000 people. But you can look at 10 people and say, oh, this person's into golf. So you send them like a personalized golf ball or a gift certificate to something that they love. Like you figure that out and you give them the gift, and then you get the meeting, and then you have a conversation with them and you understand the problem. But it's all about finding a way to start to build the rapport with the top 10. You start with giving, then you start having a conversation with them. The only thing I would say is, if you can call them for an interview before you do a sales conversation, I would just be clear to yourself, that's not a sales conversation, it's an interview. Don't pretend that an interview is a sales conversation, because that's dishonest. But other than that, you're getting to know them, you're building rapport, you're building trust. If they've seen you 6 or 7 times before you call or email or postal mail, they're much more likely to answer or respond or engage in some way. So you want to build that with those top 10. And then once you've worked through the top 10, you go to the next 10.
Yes. So everything Jeff said, okay? Everything Jeff said. And
now I want to see how he's different.
I wouldn't use a survey strategy. If you're going to go after them for sales, be clear that you're going to go after them for sales. I would probably not use a survey strategy with the top 100. That survey strategy works great if you're doing an industry, but where your top 100 might be different kinds of companies, because you're looking for creatives, but you're looking in different space, right? So because they're in different spaces, I would have it be straight sales. So everything that Jeff said, you do that first, right? Everything he said, like you surround them, you do all that stuff. And then you got to really get in there. So the whole thing is you've got to be willing to spend some money on those top 10.
100%.
So it might cost you $2,000-3,000 to get that client,
Or more.
or more. But you're looking at a client that's going to give you $1 million worth of business or $500,000 worth of business a year. So if it costs you $5,000 to get that client, big whoop, because it's what is the cost of client acquisition? So when you're doing strategies like this, you've got to be clear that this is different than doing a marketing strategy. This is a sales intense, I'm going after you strategy, right?
Yep.
So I'll tell you some things that I've done in the past. I found out that this software company got funded. They had 11 people and they were going to grow really fast. And every IT company in my neighborhood was going after them, right? At the time, there was a Bluetooth headset called the Zivio that was like top of the line, best noise canceling. It was like the baddest ass. It was made by an Italian company that later got bought by Jabra or something like that. But it was like this really cool looking. It had an extendable boom, like a little metal boom that you could pull out and put it right by your mouth. And it was great. It cost like $200 and some odd at the time, back in 2004 or 5, whenever this was, 6. And I sent one to the CEO with a note. Hey, I really want to talk to you and I want to make sure we can have a clear conversation. When you get this, I'd appreciate just a 5-minute call to talk about the growth of your company. That's the note that I sent him. He called me probably 10 minutes on the Bluetooth. He got it. Hey, Joe, this thing sounds great. And I'm like, hey, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. Thanks for calling me back. I could not call you back after you sent me a $200 headset. I said, great. Do you think we could meet? I'm actually right down the block from you. I can be over in 10 minutes. He's sure, come on over. And then I got that account. They went from 11 people to 250 people. We actually helped them hire their in-house team. But they went in a year, they went from 11 people to 250 people. And I made a ton of money.
You identify the top 100 and then you go to the top 10 of the top 100 and you start there. And then once you're done with the top 10, you go to the next 10 and the next 10 and you work your way all the way down the 100. You probably won't get to the bottom of the 100. And that's really the essence.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one right now and tap into our insights and instincts to help drive your business vision and success. Remember, you didn't start your business to feel frustration. You started it for freedom. We can help you discover the impact, freedom, and wealth you always imagined. Learn more at startgrowmanage.com/learn more.